What is going on, my peeps? Your boy Versatile is back with another video. Back here to discuss the Xbox games showcase that took place today, which is Thursday. This video probably will be uploaded late Thursday. And we're just gonna talk about the games that they showed off and overall how the presentation went, and I guess of course compare it to PlayStation's event. So before we get into the video, make sure you guys ignite that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, make sure you guys hit that notification bell so that way you stay informed when I drop videos. Now, case in point, I mentioned this in a video that will probably be dropping after this, but I improved the studio some. So I got a new mic in frame, it's out of frame, it's the Rode video mic. And so my audio should be tremendously better now. And yeah, it's gonna sound better, but then also just in terms of me being able to have my desk back to myself, it's gonna sound, it's a lot better for the studio. And then I got a new heavy duty tripod from Coleman, which is also a fluid head. So when I'm doing videography or other stuff in that realm, I have that, but this is more of a stationed at home approach right now. And so that's my new setup that I have going on, and it's because of the support I got from you guys. So thank you so much for that. It helps me feel confident to invest in such stuff. That way I know you guys will appreciate it, because you guys, you know, like watching and supporting the channel. So I thought I'd mention that before we get into this video. And what they mentioned, you know, on the onset as they were going to start rolling out games, was that they're showing off 5 new first-party games and games from 9 out of the 15 of their first-party studios. So what did they kick it off with? Smart move, because PlayStation did something similar. Halo Infinite. They jumped out the gate with Halo, and it was gameplay, and it was a nice lengthy gameplay, and they uploaded on YouTube, if you haven't already, their 4K 60 frames per second version of the gameplay, and boy does that look crisp. And of course, people's hyped up about Halo. It's got story, it looks more expansive in terms of the world environment that you get to explore. Gameplay of course looks good. Halo, get that heat check, that elbow, you know what I'm saying? We used to have a term for it back in the day on the 360 for like Halo 3 and stuff like that. I can't even think of the word anymore, but goodness gracious, it was nice to see Halo come out the gate. Will I buy a Series X for it? Probably not. I mean, if I can, I will. I mean, of course, it depends on their price, and we'll get to that in a second. But the rest of the games, or the next game that followed, was Forza Motorsport. So it was almost very similar in theme to PlayStation, because right after Spider-Man, I guess you could say GTA, but really Spider-Man, they showed Gran Turismo. So Forza Motorsport, flawless 4K 60 is what they're saying. Then they followed up with Everwild, which has some really cool graphics. It's from the studio Rare, and it's about nature connecting things. And you got Tell Me Why, which is like a story-driven game. Looks like the mom went crazy or something like that, and like these siblings were separated. Now they're back together trying to figure out what went on with them, and they could see visions of stuff from the past. So something like that. Then you have Moon Studios dropping another version of Ori and the Will of the Wisps at 120 hertz and HDR on the Series X, which is pretty mind-blowing. To be able to get 120 hertz and HDR, that's a feat that we want to see with gaming consoles. And if the Series X is going to really be able to pull this off, then there's something to talk about here with next gen, because most likely PS5 is going to have something similar, and that's what's going to be also exciting. Then you got Outer Worlds, Peril on Gorgon, which is DLC basically, and Obsidian hooked up with them, a collab for that. And then Obsidian also showed off a Bugs Life looking game called Grounded, and they showed off a new first-person RPG game coming out called Avowed. So that's pretty interesting. I think people were kind of comparing that to like Skyrim or something like that. Then Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice was again kind of teased. Then Psychonauts 2 came out, a little bit of gameplay for that. And then you had Destiny 2 4K 60 is going to be coming out for the Series X. And then you had Stalker 2. A lot of people forgot about the first Stalker, but there's a Stalker 2. I didn't play that. Warhammer Dark Tide, Tetris Effect Connected, which I thought Tetris Effect was a PlayStation exclusive. Maybe it's not anymore, or maybe it was a timed exclusive. I'm not 100% certain, but Tetris Effect is also on the Series X. Then you got The Gunk. It was this chick going around sucking up gunk throughout this world. And then you had the medium show back up with this dual reality gameplay feature, so you can see how things are playing out in one form and in another, as if there's like an alternate reality taking place. Then New Genesis Phantasy Star Online dropped. That looks amazing, and of course, with most anime games, amazing music, of course. And then Crossfire X, and then Fable was showing off at the end, or at least a tease of a frog eating a fairy. So not much gameplay taking place at Xbox's event, and not as many games as PlayStation 5's event. PlayStation had more games than this, I believe, showcased both in terms of some gameplay and then just teased or mentioned. Now, of course, and then as I said, that was the end. So what do I think of the overall presentation of Xbox's showcase? It was cool. I liked where like Phil Spencer and the other guy, I forgot his name, but when they were announcing and talking about stuff. I liked the environment they had. It felt kind of Apple-ish, you know? And then they said like over 100 games, and then like all these games would be playable on Xbox Game Pass. And that's the interesting part about Xbox or Microsoft when it comes to gaming, because one thing I noticed with the games, especially the graphics, was although there were cool graphics, there was cool different approaches to graphics like we saw with PlayStation. PlayStation seems to also still like to tend towards more of the realistic side, which is what I like. It seems like Xbox or Microsoft, they don't like that. And of course you had a couple games here and there, but it still felt like it was off, or still not up to par, at least in terms of what Sony has been able to push out for realistic gameplay or realistic graphics. So from that standpoint, I feel like Xbox is below PlayStation from that standpoint, especially. And then I also feel like Xbox took another step back, or didn't really take that big of a step forward in terms of trying to compete with PlayStation in terms of their games. Like, again, yeah, people want to hear and hope that there's a Fable, and I don't know if it's a continuation or a remaster, but again, like, if it's a continuation, it's a new game. But if it's a remaster, of course you guys like hearing about that, and that's cool. So I'm not hating on that, whatever, you know, not a big deal. I'm just saying it's a game we're familiar with. And Halo Infinite, of course, it's a game we're familiar with, but it's a game that is synonymous with Xbox, and that's why that makes sense for that to continue. Much like a Ratchet and Clank, or now Horizon and Spider-Man are synonymous with PlayStation. You know, The Last of Us and whatnot, Ghost of Tsushima, it's PlayStation. So if those get sequels or more games, of course you're gonna be like, oh yes. So in this case, there was a few familiar games, if not that I've heard of, other people may have heard of or forgot about, and then they're like, oh, I remember that there was that first game. I just feel like they didn't hit hard enough with games for Xbox, and that's always the case with Xbox. Now, they've already came out and said prior to this, like some time ago, that they won't really be seeing a lot of first-party hits until like 2022, which is ideal anyway, but it's just like when you do say that, and then on the other side, PlayStation's gearing up to try to have a lot of first-party hits early and in 2021. You know what I'm saying? PlayStation's doing that thing. But this is where I want to talk about the price factor, because Xbox could be cheaper than, or the Xbox Series X could be cheaper than PlayStation and the PlayStation 5, because of, if not the lack of games, their approach to video gaming, which is through Xbox Game Pass. As was heard like just the day before, 2 days before this event, they discontinued or dropped Xbox Live Gold. So you're wondering if Xbox Game Pass is really about to take a big step forward in terms of allowing gamers to play the games through Game Pass, and you don't even really need to have Xbox Live to do so. Like, that's a way for people to play a lot of video games and play them quick and not have to always run out and drop $60 on a game. And that's probably in part why you hear a lot of, you know, studios, you know, probably saying they're not going to be jacking up prices for, you know, next gen upgrades. That's a unique approach that I can see working, especially for Xbox, being that that's kind of like the culture they have been, or community they've been kind of growing and you know, festering in a good way. So for Xbox, that makes sense, and that's why it could undercut PlayStation's price point. Not to say that people will prefer it because of that, but just because it's justifiable that the Xbox Series X could come in at like $350, $400 comfortably. And it's because of what they're ultimately trying to offer you on the back end through games and how to play them. Whereas PlayStation 5 and really PlayStation in general, how Sony does gaming is generational gaming. So you do see these great exclusives that come out every generation, and then for that generation and then the next generation there's a sequel or something that carries on that name and then transitions the generation into the next generation. And you can look back in awe and be nostalgic for how great certain generations were. And that's in semi-contrast to what Xbox is doing. Like, yeah, a lot of us can relive and love Xbox 360, but when you also think about domination, PS2 and Xbox really went at it. It was 360 and PS3. That's why the 360 really did so well, is because PS3 kind of botched itself in terms of launch and game titles. So 360 had an upper hand on PS3. So with PS5, it could come in at 500, but it's also justifiable because of what everything they're offering for that generation in totality, as opposed to the combination of you could play all these old games and all these games on in any of your systems with Xbox Game Pass, basically. Whereas PlayStation now improves and develops into something similar, then Microsoft is going to be in the world of hurt, because now you got all these games that PlayStation has that you can play on, if not any system, of at least probably from the PS4 and PS5. You can play a lot of older games, and that is true competition for Xbox Game Pass. So for me, it's interesting nonetheless to see the tug of war of gaming competition and how they're starting to separate themselves in terms of their philosophy for gaming. Now, me, I prefer PlayStation. I'm more biased towards PlayStation because to me, there is more variety of games, whether it's first party or not. Now, of course, it's really more based around first party exclusives, indie included, that, oh, you know, I might try to play that. That looks kind of fun. That seems kind of cool. I mean, you can almost say Unravel is like PlayStation's version of Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Now, and you could say Ori might be better than Unravel 1 and 2, but those type of like smaller platform exclusive games are reasons why you might want to pick up the system. Is it enough to justify picking up the system? No. PlayStation will give you more of a reason to not just spend $60, but to buy their system as opposed to buying the Microsoft's Xbox Series X. That's my 2 cents on it. Did I overall enjoy it? I enjoyed PlayStation's a lot more. Am I biased more towards PlayStation? I have been more recently because I've been more invested, more familiar with PS4 and now PS5. Xbox, I was a diehard 360 guy, and I never experienced Xbox outside of that. That being said, if Xbox and Microsoft can drop really good exclusives starting in 2022, then that caused some more room to pause in terms of Series X versus PS5. But for me, I'm going PS5 because I know what I'm getting. I like their licenses, the licenses that they've obtained for games. And I think Microsoft needs to go to Marvel and get the Incredible Hulk. That will get me to move over there to get the Series X. If they can bring the Hulk, because it's very fitting for the system in its whole, in its totality. Green represents Xbox. Green represents the Hulk. Mash them together, you get Hulk smash. You know what I'm saying? That will get me to come over to Xbox for sure, or at least get an Xbox. I'm PS5, PlayStation all day, but that will hurt my soul, and I would have to go get an Xbox Series X for the Hulk alone. And then, of course, the byproduct of that is Halo Infinite and Ori and maybe Forza, but something else. I don't know. Probably a cross-gen game, probably. But most likely, I'm going to play cross-gen on my PlayStation because I'm more familiar with that atmosphere, that ecosystem. But again, that's just my 2 cents. Let me know what you guys think about, or what you guys thought about the Xbox Game Showcase. Were you impressed? Were you excited? Was it dull? Did you get bored? Did you feel like it started and ended with Halo Infinite as I did? Did you look forward to any of the third part, or the exclusives or the indie games? Let me know down in the comments below. But if you haven't already, make sure you guys ignite that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you guys hit that notification bell so that way you stay informed when I drop videos. But your boy Versatile signing out, and until the next video, wait for it.